Breaking news. The situation in the Central African Republic after Prigozhin has left Wagner. Former Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin posed for selfies with his lieutenants and locals during his final trip to the Central African Republic, CAR, last month at La Maison Russe, or the Russian House, a cultural center near the Russian embassy in the capital. The institute and its various endeavors are glaring illustrations of how the mercenary group has come to stand in for the Russian state in the country and of the difficulties that lie ahead for President Vladimir Putin in his efforts to reclaim authority. Russia has been in a high-stakes race to consolidate Prigozhin's African empire, which includes thousands of fighters, a vast array of business holdings, and numerous soft power initiatives like this one, since his attempted coup in June and subsequent death in a plane crash outside Moscow just 2 months later. The future of Wagner's organization is uncertain as the Kremlin attempts to grasp its vast commercial network. Bangui, the capital of the Central African Republic, CAR, is a microcosm of the organization's future prospects on the African continent. Russia seems to be centralizing Wagner's operations and maintaining its influence in this area. It appears that business as usual is the message Moscow wishes to convey. The sphere of Russia's influence is pervasive. Bar patrons in Wagner's hometown drink Africa Tea Lahore beer and Wagner-affiliated Wa Na Wa vodka. Meanwhile, fighter planes donated by the Russian government roar overhead. A Russian tricolor flag waves proudly over the cultural center. In the courtyard, there is a carousel with an onion dome that spins. CNN's Natalia Duhan spoke with a senior investigator from the US-based nonprofit The Sentry, which has been tracking Wagner across Central African Republic. Duhan described the Maison Russe as the nerve center of Wagner's operations there. The Sentry reports that the center is used by Wagner's organization for a wide variety of business-related activities, including the sale of gold and diamonds and the hosting of high-profile events. Through its events, the organization spreads Russian culture while promoting a pro-Moscow perception of international relations, as Duhan put it. Wagner Group mercenaries have been present in the CAR since at least 2018, where they have been tasked with guarding President Faustin Archange Touadera and instructing new recruits in the ways of the military. Wagner forces have fought rebels for over a decade, expanding Russia's influence in the mineral-rich country while doing so. Wagner is heavily invested in the timber industry and has secured a number of large mining concessions in the country to explore for diamonds and gold. According to All Eyes on Wagner, an open-source project keeping tabs on the organization, the Russian House is legally recognized as a company in Bangui but has no ties to the Rosotrudnichestvo agency, the Russian government department in charge of coordinating cultural institutes abroad. From the perspective of All Eyes on Wagner, Maison Russe is a prime example of how the Wagner Group has been a substitute to the Russian state, as relayed to CNN. Wagner's and Russia's interests are served, the statement continued. Wagner's beer will be promoted through VIP events, the screening of Wagner films, the hosting of Prigozhin, and the invitation of Russian Ministry of Defense delegates to deliver talks on Russian Central African Republic military cooperation. Dmitry Saitai, a former deputy of Prigozhin who has played a leading role in the CAR for Wagner, has been in charge of the center for some time. However, it is possible that Saitai has been replaced. The EU and the US have sanctioned Saitai for serious human rights abuses, and he narrowly escaped an assassination attempt in December 2022. The Russian House has a new director, who the local press has identified as Nafisa. Prigozhin photographed her during his final trip to the CAR, but before April, she had no ties to Wagner that we can find. There are strict regulations on who can enter the Russian House. Despite CNN's repeated requests, the ostensible new director has denied access to any Western journalists covering the story. She identified herself as Nafisa Kiryanova when a CNN crew equipped with hidden cameras visited the site. CNN has uncovered her other alias, Anfisa Alexandrovna Kiryanova, thanks to her extensive use of social media and other linked profiles. Kiryanova has been active on YouTube since at least 9 months ago, when she was posting beauty product reviews. She lists her education and work experience as translator and translator at the Sorbonne in Paris and Moscow State Linguistic University on her online resume. In traditional dress and silver heels, she gave CNN a quick tour of the facility. Russian classes were being held in 3 tents outside the center, and Russian films were being shown inside the theater. A man in a mask, who looked like he belonged to the Wagner mercenary group, strolled past the tents and into the parking lot behind them. Kiryanova refused to identify him or reveal the location of the restricted area to CNN. By asking, "Oh my God, can you show me that?" Kiryanova dodged CNN's questions about whether or not she appeared in the background of photographs taken of Prigozhin in the center. The pictures were shown to her, and she grudgingly said, "Okay, yeah, that's good." Kiryanova said that the death of Wagner would not affect Russia's mission in the car when asked about Prigozhin's visit and the future of Wagner there. Does it make a difference if, for example, your country's president passes away? What does this mean for the future of your country? She emphasized that the Russian cultural mission would continue. Kiryanova, when asked who currently oversaw the facility, said that Saitai was responsible for the head of the whole mission and he runs some other directions. Among Wagner's old guard still present in the car as of late last week were Saitai and Vitaly Profilov, Wagner's security advisor to President Toadera, who is also sanctioned by the US and European Union. An unnamed diplomatic official who spoke with CNN speculated that the two men had signed new contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense after they had traveled back to Moscow and then returned. Both have gone into hiding over the past few months, ignoring CNN's repeated requests for interviews. The diplomatic official claimed that Wagner left an indelible mark on the car with only 1,000 or so mercenaries. According to the official, Russia has begun a coordinated reorganization in an effort to reduce Wagner's operating costs in the car. Both new contracts and a pullback to major population centers are part of this effort to refocus power. The official also noted that of the approximately 150 fighters who were expected to return to Moscow to sign contracts in July and August, only about 50 actually did so. There are telltale signs of a troop redeployment across the city center. Unmarked green or sand-colored pickup trucks are what the Wagner mercenaries use to get around Bangui. They go out and about, grabbing snacks and drinks at supermarkets while wearing balaclavas. Wagner custom dictates that they always wear masks, even when engaging in mundane activities like perusing the wares of a flea market in search of a new pair of shoes. There has been little change in the car's relationship with Russia, according to Fidel Gawandjika, a senior advisor to President Toadera, despite the failed Wagner mutiny and Prigozhin's subsequent death thousands of miles to the north. Gawandjika invited CNN to his lavish mansion in the nation's capital. This tall, grizzled man claimed that Prigozhin had given him a T-shirt reading, "Je suis Wagner," which translates to, "I am Wagner," in French. "He was my friend, he was my best friend in front of all Central African people," he said of the deceased mercenary leader. His comments included, "The Russians gave us peace, and, we are very glad that Mr. Yevgeny Prigozhin in little time, 1 year, pushed out the rebels, and our country is occupied by our army 100%. A recent conversation between Putin and Toadera, according to Gawandjika, ended with Putin assuring Toadera that everything will be like yesterday. Things will improve tomorrow and the day after that. So, we don't feel any remorse.